Now to Turkey, where authorities have seized the construction company owned by Istanbul Mayor Ekrem Imamoglu. This after he was arrested on charges including graft and aiding a terrorist group. Imamoglu was considered the likely top rival to Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan nationally. Protesters were out in force on Wednesday as government opposition labeled the arrest as a coup attempt against the next president. Imamolglu is already facing several other legal cases. Our correspondent Julia Hahn has more.
The government must resign. These people are shouting. Despite barricades and a protest ban, they gathered outside Istanbul's main police station in support of Ekrem Imamoglu, the city's mayor who was detained Wednesday morning on charges including corruption and aiding a terrorist group. Before being taken from his home by police, Imamoglu posted this video on his social media.
Hundreds of police officers have arrived at my door. We are facing great tyranny, but I want you to know that I will not be discouraged. I love you all very much. I entrust myself to my nation.
Ekrem Imamoglu is a powerful figure within Turkey's opposition, and he is widely seen as the strongest challenger to longtime President Erdogan. His detention comes just a few days before he was to be named his party's candidate for the 2028 presidential election. Imamoglu has served as Istanbul's mayor for nearly 6 years now, running Turkey's largest city of some 16 million people. Residents told us they are shocked and angry about their mayor's detention.
Ekrem Imamoglu was an opposition candidate with the highest potential. Now they are trying to neutralize him politically.
This is very sad for democracy in our country. We're sad as a society. Our country really deserves democracy.
I'm absolutely furious. When I woke up this morning, I woke up with sadness. The rule of law has to be respected.
A statement from the Istanbul Public Prosecutor's Office cited charges including bribery and extortion, saying that Imamoglu was the leader of a criminal organization and that a total of 100 suspects had been rounded up. The Turkish Justice Minister later confirmed a separate probe for allegedly aiding a terrorist organization. He insisted the judiciary operated independently, while Imamoglu's opposition party, the CHP, slammed the mayor's detention as, quote, a coup. Shortly after the police raid of Imamoglu's home, access to social media platforms was restricted. And the Istanbul governor's office immediately issued a ban on all protests for 4 days. Hundreds of police surrounded City Hall and closed off streets in central Istanbul in an attempt to prevent larger demonstrations. Imamoglu's detention occurred just hours after Istanbul University revoked his bachelor's degree amid claims it was falsely obtained. In Turkey, a candidate without a university degree can't run for the presidency. Imamoglu's career has been overshadowed by a string of what critics say are politically motivated legal cases against him in recent years. His detention could put an end to his presidential ambitions and cost Imamoglu the Istanbul mayor's seat. It also fuels fears that President Erdogan has marked a new phase in his crackdown on dissenting voices.
And joining us now from Istanbul is DW's Julia Hahn, who filed that report. Julia, despite a 4-day ban on demonstrations, thousands of supporters have turned out to protest Imamoglu's arrest. What does that say about opposition to Erdogan?
Well, for the Turkish opposition, this is definitely a heavy blow, and it also marks a dramatic escalation in the government's crackdown on critics and political rivals. What the opposition here is now trying to do is mobilize people. They have called on people to take to the streets, not only here in Istanbul, but across the country, to show their support for detained Mayor Imamoglu, but also to show that they're against what the opposition calls is an instrumentalization of the judicial system by the government to eliminate eliminate political challengers so they don't have to face them in elections. Now, the leader of the main opposition party, the CHP, he last night addressed that crowd of thousands of people outside the city hall, and he directly made this about the country's future. He said, let me briefly quote him, "This is no longer about Ekrem Imamoglu. This is a fight for democracy, for the future of a free and just Turkey." Now, the question is, of course, are we going to see mass protests across the country? Possibly. After all, we are in Turkey, where demonstrations, criticism of the government have been heavily repressed in recent years, where opposition politicians have been jailed, where media freedom is limited, and where many ordinary people are simply afraid to voice their thoughts and concerns. The government certainly seems to be afraid of some mass public reaction. Otherwise, they would not have announced a ban on protests for 4 days, and they would not have sent thousands of police to the city center to block major roads and squares.
Now, the Erdogan government says these arrests are not politically motivated, Julia. How believable is that? And why do you think this crackdown is happening now?
Well, the Turkish Justice Minister has tried to make that point yesterday, emphasizing that the Turkish judiciary was operating independently and that these detentions had nothing to do with President Erdogan. But many here in the city find that very hard to believe, and observers, analysts are tying this directly to President Erdogan and his hold on power. The ruling party's alliance has lost massively to the opposition in last year's local elections, and it looks like it's going to be very difficult for them to win a majority in the next parliamentary and presidential elections, which are scheduled officially for 2028. President Erdogan is trailing in the polls, and so it looks to many analysts like this is really an attempt to just eliminate the biggest potential challenger to President Erdogan. Erdogan has been at the helm of Turkish politics for more than 20 years. He has signaled that he is seeking another term, but for that to be legally possible, there would have to be either snap elections here in Turkey or a change to the constitution. So analysts are really saying this is all part of Erdogan and his allies preparing the ground for the next election.
Arrest warrants have been issued not just for Imamoglu, but also for around 100 other people, I understand, Julia. Who are they, and what charges are they facing?
Well, according to the Turkish Justice Minister, there are 2 separate probes. Mayor Imamoglu is part of both investigations. The first investigation focuses on charges of organized crime, including alleged bribery and embezzlement. And the majority of the detainees were taken in for questioning under this investigation. There is a second one focusing on alleged terror links, apparently links to the banned Kurdistan Workers' Party. A number of people have been detained under this investigation. And if you look at the list of detainees, you see people working with the Istanbul municipality in different departments, people from the opposition CHP, and a number of close aides and advisors of Mayor Ekrem Imamoglu. So these investigations are really about people who are directly or indirectly working with the mayor.
Julia, thank you very much for your reporting. That was DW's Julia Hahn in Istanbul.